Welcome back to Minnie Makes. My name is Callie, and today we are going to be making the most simple and delicious no-knead tomato, garlic, and rosemary focaccia bread. So when I say this is a simple recipe, I truly mean it. There's no special equipment required to make this like perfectly chewy and crispy focaccia bread. This is a really great beginner to bread making recipe as well, and you're absolutely going to love it, and I can't wait to share it with you. So let's get right into it. But before we begin, as always, please remember to subscribe, like, share, chat in the comment section, and follow me on social media for more recipes and additional content. So let's go over the ingredients. I have some bread flour. You can substitute all-purpose flour. However, I really feel like bread flour provides a better texture. I have a little bit of garlic powder in there as well. I have some water, active dry yeast, sugar, extra virgin olive oil, more extra virgin olive oil, and some salt. And then we'll have some additional ingredients that we'll go over when the time comes. So let's get right into it. First things first, we want to activate the yeast, which is really, really simple, and I'm gonna walk you through it. Okay, so the first step in activating the yeast is warming up the water, and you want the water to be between 100 and 110 degrees Fahrenheit. That is the temperature that is required for the yeast to activate. The best way to know if the water is at the correct temperature is to use an instant read thermometer. However, if you don't have an instant read thermometer, I do have a hack for you to know whether or not the water is warm enough, and this is how that goes. You stick your finger in the water. If the water is so hot you need to yank your finger out, chances are the water is too hot. If, once you stick your finger in the water, it's quite hot but not so hot you need to yank your finger out, then it's probably ready to go. So it should by no means be boiling, okay? So now I'm just gonna take the yeast and the sugar and just put it in that cup that I had the water in, and I'm just gonna let this warm up a little bit, and it doesn't take long at all, and then we'll continue. Okay, so my water is all set, so I'm just gonna pour this over the yeast and the sugar, and I'm gonna give this a stir. And then we're just gonna let this mixture sit for 10 minutes. And after 10 minutes, you should notice like a layer of froth and kind of foam and bubbles that covers the surface of this yeast mixture. Okay, and now we're just gonna grab all of our dry ingredients. So that's our bread flour, our garlic powder, along with our salt. And focaccia requires a lot of salt. This is a very flavorful bread. You know, it's very kind of salty and tons of olive oil, which give it so much flavor. So be generous with that. We're just gonna give this a quick stir. And then now I'm just gonna wait 10 minutes for this yeast to activate, and then we'll continue, and I'll be sure to show you what it looks like. Okay, so 10 minutes later and the yeast is activated. There's a noticeable kind of like frothy film that covers the surface of the mixture, and so we are good to go. So now we're gonna switch back over here. I'm gonna grab my large bowl, and to this, I'm gonna add my olive oil, my extra virgin olive oil, of course, along with this mixture right here. And I'm just gonna give everything a stir with, you know, a fork, a spatula, whatever you want, until all of the ingredients are pretty much combined, and it's kind of just gonna be in a big kind of mess of dough, and I'll show you what that looks like. Okay, so now that all of the ingredients are incorporated and this dough is kind of just in this big kind of squishy blob, what we're gonna do is take some more extra virgin olive oil, and you're gonna wanna oil your hands really well because this dough is gonna be quite sticky. And we're just going to kind of rub olive oil all over every surface of the dough, along with every surface of the bowl, and just be really generous. Focaccia loves olive oil. Okay, so now that this bowl and the dough are completely greased up, what I'm gonna do is cover this with plastic wrap and pop this bowl into a warm spot for, I would say, probably between an hour and a half to 2.5 hours, or until this dough has doubled in size. I will show you after, however long it takes for this dough to double in size, exactly what I mean by double in size. It's going to get really big and puffy and beautiful, and I'll show you what that looks like, and I'll see you then. Okay, so we are back, and 2 hours later, this is what my dough looks like. It is big and it's puffy, and it is noticeably grown in size, at least doubled in size. So now what we're gonna do is get a large sheet pan, and to this, I'm gonna add, move this a little bit, quite a bit of olive oil. Like I said earlier, focaccia is to olive oil like peanut butter is to jelly. I mean, they just need each other to make a really good focaccia. So we're just going to spread this oil out all over kind of the bottom and the sides of the pan, like so. And I usually don't really measure how much oil I'll put down there, but I'll try to give you an exact amount in the recipe instructions. Okay, so now we're just gonna put this, look at this dough right on down here in the pan, and it is like stretchy and soft, and like this is the fun part right here. It's very satisfying moving this dough. So we're just gonna spread out the dough to every corner and every side of this pan. You really want the dough to reach literally every corner because that's gonna help with the browning. So just keep kind of maneuvering the dough. And if you get to a point with the dough where you're finding that the dough just keeps kind of like retracting in on itself as you try to pull it, just cover the dough with plastic wrap for like 5-10 minutes. All you need to do is give that gluten a chance to relax. There's no point in fighting it. It's not gonna budge. So here we go. So next up, what I'm gonna do is cover this with plastic wrap and let it sit for 1 hour. Halfway through, you want to get your oven nice and preheated to 450 degrees Fahrenheit. You want that to be nice and hot when it's time to bake this. So I'm gonna cover this and then I'll see you back in an hour. Alrighty, so an hour later, and as you can see here, my focaccia has definitely puffed up within the hour. My oven is preheated to 450 degrees and we are ready to rock and roll. So next up, what we're gonna do, if you need to grease your hands a little bit before we do this, go ahead, is we are just going to dimple the top of the focaccia. And this is a very like, this is definitely a trademark of like a traditional focaccia, which is just like lots of little dimples kind of scattered throughout the top. And make sure when you're doing your dimples, go all the way to the bottom of the pan. And so here we go. Great. Okay, so now I'm just gonna set this aside for a second and we're gonna get our toppings together. So as far as toppings go, here I have some cherry tomatoes that I have just cut in half. My cherry tomatoes were like large and in charge for some reason, so I cut some of them in half and then in half again just to make them a little bit smaller. Again, it's all personal preference. I just don't really like biting into like a pretty large cherry tomato. I also have a bunch of sliced garlic. You don't want to mince it. It'll burn in the oven if you cut it too small. Here I have about a couple sprigs of rosemary that I've just stripped from their stems and chopped them up so they're a little bit smaller. Okay, so now that we've gone over the toppings, what we're gonna do here seems like a small step, but I feel like it's a step a lot of people skip when they're making focaccia, just from like different YouTube recipes I've looked at or different blogs, that I think is kind of an important step. And it seems like a small step because it is a small step, but it does make a big difference. And this is what I'm talking about. You want to add the oil, add some oil and salt and pepper over all of your toppings before they hit the focaccia. And the reason for this is because one, it's just gonna maximize flavor. It's gonna make everything, all of the toppings so much more flavorful once they get like direct contact with that olive oil and the salt and pepper. If you were to just add the rosemary or the tomatoes onto the focaccia, what's gonna happen is it's just gonna kind of burn in the oven. The flavor isn't gonna be very pleasant, but by ensuring ahead of time that you know, every ingredient is really just kind of like coated in that olive oil, it's gonna taste so much better once it's baked in the oven. So now I'm just adding black pepper, and as far as the amount of toppings go, you could add in, you know, more garlic, more tomatoes, whatever you want to do, you know, it's up to you. And now we're just gonna add the toppings and, you know, just scatter them all throughout the top, like so. You can kind of press them down a touch. Just keep adding. Okay, so this is looking beautiful, and just for the last finishing touches, what we're gonna do is add a little bit of kosher salt. You want any kind of coarse salt will do. So if you have any kind of coarse sea salt, I use kosher salt all the time, so that's just what I have on hand. And so also here, what I'm gonna do, I know we've already added a ton of olive oil, so what's a little more olive oil gonna do? So give it one final drizzle. Like so. So now I'm gonna put this into my oven for about 20 to 23 minutes, or until the top is nice and golden brown, and I will show you exactly how beautiful the exterior and the interior are once this is finished baking, and you are going to lose your mind. It's so amazing. So I'll see you then. Okay, so we are back. This focaccia baked for exactly 23 minutes and it is absolutely incredible. It's crispy on the outside, it's gonna be soft and chewy on the interior, and it's just the focaccia of your dreams. So if you love this recipe, which I'm confident that you will, you are sure to love my other variations on focaccia. So be sure to subscribe to my channel so you're notified when those recipes drop. And as always, for the full written recipe and instructions, head to my blog, windymakes.com. I'll put the link for that in the description box below. Click on the link, the recipe will come right up, and make this focaccia. I promise you're gonna love it, and let me know what you think because I'd love to hear from you. Thank you so much. I'll see you next time. Bye-bye.